Hi guys, hey, welcome into the show. This is Big Ed, your host of Wired for Bass, and tonight I went out and we got you exactly who we promised we get you. We got you, Mr. Ken Mah. He just went out on one of the most prestigious bodies of water in the whole Northern California, and won a little bitty trophy and won a little tournament. So I thought, let's get him on here and we'll talk about this. And so Ken, welcome into the show.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, no, we appreciate you coming on. You went out to that monster lake that everybody fishes, Thermalito After Bay. This is one of the really cool things about the whole Apex tour and what you guys are doing out there is you are fishing again, in some of these waters that, the first ones were all waters that people have probably fished or know about. This one, not so much. This is a pretty much water that people know about, but people hardly ever fish.
Right.
It's not one of those super popular lakes. And when they take guys that of your caliber and they take all these other pros that are out there and they put you on a body of water like that, I think it really just shows how skilled you guys are, because I'll tell you what, you flat out smashed them the last day. That was just impressive. And there's so much to be said about that when you watched everybody else. Some guys blanked, last day, but yeah, that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, with Apex, you can't get any outside information. So the anglers within Apex, we can talk to each other even during the off limits. As long as you're an Apex angler and you're confirmed in the field, you can talk to each other. You just can't talk to anybody else and get any information or any outside information. And with the 30-day off limits. I did a lot of research, because you want to know what caliber of fish live anywhere you're going. And you look at the club events that are out of there, or they fish these Wednesday nighters out of there. I think it's a 3 fish limit. And there's some really good fishermen.
Right.
There's some really good anglers that fish that Wednesday night. So when you see that, 13, 14 pounds is, winning a lot of those 5 fish tournaments. And then on those 3 fish tournaments, sometimes it'll take, 9, 10 or 11 pounds. It gives you an indication of what lives in that lake.
Right.
But I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. It's very similar. It's a similar thing when the Elite Series comes to town. Back east where they fish, and you put a group of skilled anglers on a body of water, and they figure them out. And this group is no different. They're if you look at all 3 events, Almanor, Comanche, and then now Thermalito After Bay, the first day it's kind of lackluster. One person will figure them out and things, but then when you start, like you said, when you start giving a group of skilled anglers more information, more time to dissect a body of water, the cream's going to rise to the top. And this group, I'm telling you, you better bring your lunch pal, and you better not. I always say this: you make mistakes, and you're going to get your clock cleaned by this group. And that's how I feel. I it's not about fearing somebody, because it's still you and the fish. But, I know that when I put my boat in the water against this group of anglers, I have to be completely present and in that moment and on my game, if I want to win or do well.
Right. And that's such an important thing to say. If you want to do well, you're going to have to go out there and do the work. Now, the one thing that I think is so tough with some of the other things, and I talked to another angler yesterday about this, and it's about the work you put in. Well, it's tough when you have a 30-day off limits. You go out and, we're so used to being, pre-fishing. You hear, guys are they're up there to dusk to dawn. They're out there fishing, they're pre-fishing. And then they get up there and they go the next day and they're on them. Well, that really doesn't apply when you go out 30 days ahead of time. When you're talking about bodies of water, and any body of water does this, it changes from day to day and hour to hour sometimes. 30 days is, yeah, I mean, that's just impressive that you can still come out. And like you said, yeah, maybe it starts off a little lackluster, but did it? Because, Mark Lassane, our founder here,
Yeah.
he came out and smacked him day one. I mean, he was just putting boats, fishing, and then all of a sudden Austin Wilson comes in and he's putting them in the boat, and it was like, wow, they're finding numbers, they're finding things, and then where do you go? Where
Yeah.
do you go from there? Well, and then all of a sudden you guys got to step up and step up and step up like you did, just to make that second, the third day. Because that's important right there. I'm looking at a guy like Mark who's sitting there at 10, and he's like, I talked to him the next day, and he goes, I'll make it if I catch one fish. He goes, I don't even actually think I have to, catch one fish. Well, when you hear that, I mean, it's like, it's tough fishing out there. That's not easy fishing.
The After Bay was definitely, it was hard to generate bites. And obviously there was a group of anglers that found them, and that's what's unique. When this format and this group was first formed, we had a meeting back in September of last year, and when the group was formed and the ideas were presented, and the anglers. Yeah, that's the other thing that I want to stress is, within the Apex group, the anglers really threw a lot of feedback. Jeremy and the Apex made the final decision, but the anglers were able to really provide a lot of input on what format we settled in, how long were the off limits, generating some of the rules, what. The payback structure, all those things, it's really, Jeremy has really given the anglers a voice, for us to build this, thing. And, going back to Mark, Mark caught 13 keepers, and I think fifth after day one was 4. Right. So he had 300%ed 5th place.
Right.
So there is a calculation that you have to do. I think for people out there that are wondering, there's 2 ways to get into the top 10 after 2 days. Okay. So the entire field fishes day 1, day 2. And really what Apex is trying to do is really get us and any of the anglers who become Apex anglers, to throw conventional thinking out the window and then to adjust on the fly. And I think that's what people want to see when you go to these strange bodies of water. And an example is when we go to the meeting on Thursday, mm-hmm. that's when we learn what the format's going to be. It's not weeks prior. It's not a set deal. Like at Comanche, Randy said we're doing a double weigh-in on day 1. At the After Bay, he lowered the minimum scoreable bass length, because he had heard that the lake was fishing pretty tough, and that, that information that's given you the night before, if you're in that traditional mindset, it can really send you spinning, that stuff like that gets changed. Right. But here, you basically the whole field fish is 2 days. And there's 2 ways to get into the top 10 after 2 days. There's top 5 most scoreable bass, and then there's top 5 in weight. So what I tell people is what's going on the first 2 days is there's a traditional 5 fish limit tournament going on in your boat, right? There are no co-anglers, mm-hmm. So if you're fishing, that's what's going on in your boat. While you're catching your 5. The other side of that is you can also record how many scoreable bass you catch throughout the 2 days. Okay, and how that's recorded is it's done through Tourney X. Dwayne Wally and Tim Arthur at Tourney X really developed and created that software for big boats and for Apex to use. So we all use a issued keck board that Apex gives to each angler. And really the only difference that's happening, okay, while we're catching fish, you're still culling, you're still doing that stuff, you're still putting your best five in the live well. The only difference that's happening is you're taking that fish, you're closing its mouth, you're setting it on the keck board, and the keck board always has to face to 9 o'clock. And then you're taking a camera with GPS location on, and you're snapping a single overhead picture of that fish. And then what happens is as long as, for most of the year, it was a 14-inch minimum, which was our scoreable bass, which equates to approximately a 2-pounder. It's like 1.75 pounds, depending on what lake you're on. It's 1.75 pounds to 2-pounder. And if that fish is a 6-pounder or it's a 14-incher, that one fish counts as one scoreable bass.
Right. And
then Tourney X just counts how many scoreable bass that you caught through the first day and the second day. And then they take, like I said, they take the top 5 most scoreable bass after 2 days, and they just take the top 5 weight. And then if there's double qualifiers, what they'll do is they'll alternate, right? So like if you and I double qualify on, let's say we're top 2 weight and we're top 2 scoreable, right? Well, that means they got to let 2 more anglers in. So what they'll do is they'll alternate. So then they'll take one from the scoreable side, and they'll take one from the weight side, and those 2 will then advance because you and I double qualified basically after the first 2 days.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
How do you, now? Let me ask you this real quick. I don't know. You might have got to this, but how do you do the weight? I mean, is it on the Tourney X also? Do they tell you how much that fish weighs, or do you actually scale it?
Yeah. So we're all asked to scale fish. I scale my fish on a Rapala scale anyways when I'm fishing a regular traditional tournament. So I always know exactly what I have. But they, the way the rules are written and what they request is that you put, I guess it's an estimated accurate, whatever that means, So if you look at it and you think it's a 3.5-er, and you input it into Tourney X, Tourney X is, it's basically a way for us to count scoreable bass, but it's also been a tremendous way for fans to follow us along, right? Because really, unless you're named Bass Pro Tour MLF or Bassmaster,
right?
There that I know of, there isn't another organization that basically uses an online tracking system like that allows your fans, your loved ones, anybody that wants to log on to Tourney X,
right,
and be able to see how Ken's doing, or how Austin's doing, or how Nick Salvucci's doing throughout the day, and and it's really unique. I mean, some of the logins numbers that Jeremy has shared with us has been astronomical. Like the people that are logging in to see what we're catching throughout the day.
Right. Yeah. No, I got to, on this one, I actually got to let my wife kind of watch it and look at it and look it over. And she was actually really impressed with it too. I mean, just the fact that we could sit there and watch it. It's like, oh, how's this guy doing? Oh, wow, that's impressive. You could just sit there and if you just have it on the computer, if you're at work or something, you just have it up in the, background of the computer, and it's just refresh it every once in a while. It's like super good, cool to, have that going and watch that and pay attention. Cause it is, it does keep you. For me, what I looked at when they did that was it gives me a chance to, pay attention while I'm still doing something else.
Yeah, no, I mean, and like I said, it's like following bass tracks,
right.
Because that's what the Elite Series uses is they have an observer and they catch a fish, and then they kind of estimate that fish, and then they input it through a electronic cellular device, and it really does. It really gives people. You can track your favorite, angler,
right.
in this case, or, BAM could sit there and track their boss.
Yep.
And then you're able to see how many fish people are catching. And it really gives something for the fans to attach to.
Right.
right? Because we launch it at Safe Flight, and you go fishing in any other regular event, and you have no idea who's catching what until you hit the scales.
Right.
Where with Tourney X, it really gives our fans and our region something, to, like I said, to root for or to watch and track, and then they can get excited, like, oh wow, Ken caught him, or Greg caught him today. I got to tune into the weigh-in to see, what that bag's going to weigh.
Right. No, it's I think it's a great format the way they do it, and the Tourney X is, it's a good job. You can get out there and do that. Do you ever see in the future you guys actually having observers where they do that, they input it and don't have, you're not worried about, maybe a guy, I know that with Tourney X there's a picture, they got to do it right. You can't, it has to be done correctly or it's not scoreable. But taking that any flaw out of it and having somebody that actually is sitting there and their whole job is to make sure that those fish are inputted, make sure they're counted right, make sure they're done. You see that in the future with this organization, or?
I do. I do. I think there's still a lot of there are a lot of questions. Because we are still what we would call in building phase.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And so when it was presented to us back in September, there was like a 3-year roadmap, I guess was probably the best term to use, that was presented to us by the organization, to get not just the field to where it needed to get to, but also operationally. When you start off with, 50, 60, however many anglers, and they haven't bought in to the concept that you're trying to build, it's like starting any business, right? If you got 10 employees to hire, you don't always hire the 10 most skilled employees right off of the gate, right? Because with the 10 most skilled employees, sometimes having that much skill also comes drama, right? Whatever, not showing up or thinking you're better than everybody else and things like that. So sometimes, when you're building a team to build something, you're going to select the most cohesive group of 10, whatever business that is, and then march forward with that. And then as you expand, then you're going to be allowed to pick others that qualify, so to speak.
Of course. Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, to answer your question, I do believe that at some point, it's gonna, there'll be some strong demand from people who want to learn from some of the best anglers that are assembled.
That's kind of where I was going. That's kind of where I was going to lead to is eventually you're going to have these guys going, hey, I want to go spend a day out with that guy. I want to go sit in the boat with Ken Mah while he's fishing. I want to go spend the day out with, and that's the nice thing too. I mean, you're talking about right now, you're talking about 30. I think when we did the interview, and for anybody that's watching this right now, we did do an interview with Jeremy DeHart, very informative about what this is going to become in the future. Go check that out. But when I talked to him, we talked about that guys are going to want to go out there and fish with some of the top guys out there, and it's going to create some kind of a I don't know, people are going to want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think what we have to remember is just like when MLF started the cups,
right?
There was a lot of, what are they doing? Why are they catching 50 1-pounders? Why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? I actually revert back. I was one of those people way back when the Elite Series said you had to have mandatory wrap boats, you had a mandatory wear jersey, and then I remember, I don't know, like 5, 6, 7, 8 years into it, they got rid of co-anglers. And I remember sitting back here, in my little world thinking, oh, that's the most dumbest thing ever. And when you look at the vision that they had, it was the right decision to do those things.
Right.
And I would say that Apex is getting some of that, from our fans and even haters, so to speak. But I think that once it gets to the vision and to that quote end result, where the field has been built, the corporate partners have bought in, and it gets scaled to the vision that Jeremy, other current corporate people have, and anglers. We don't want to leave the anglers out. There are a group of anglers here that are valuable more than just when they're holding a rod and reel. And that's what it takes. It really takes that type of mold or meld of people, because if you have 30 like-minded people and all you're concerned with is, what's the entry fee, what's the payout, and how do I catch fish, you can't build what we're trying to build.
Right. No, that's a great point. You have to get the corporations out there on board with this whole thing. The West Coast has been such an anomaly for so long, as far as, the guys, when I talk to some of the guys back east, they don't want to come here. And it's not because of anything other than the fact that they know if they show up, they're going to get, most of them are going to end up losing out to the West Coast guys. But it's a lot of travel. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of this. It's a lot of that. There's always, what they don't want to do. The great fisheries are here, if we can keep watering them. But the great fisheries are here, and the things come out. But like you said, if you don't come out here in the West Coast right now, and while this Apex is growing, and you don't get the corporate sponsors, you don't get these companies to come on board and say, you know what? I do see the vision, and I do think that we should get on board now, especially now when it's going to be, I don't want to say it's going to be the cheapest to get in, but this is probably going to be, if this thing blows up, this is the time to be in, So any sponsors out there looking, this is the time to get in.
When you get into ground level, there's always that, 100%, and I don't, you brought it up, and I want to tell people, we lose some of our best anglers, whether they move, travel, and continue to travel. It's no secret. I'm really, really good friends with Jared Lintner, and he's been out on tour for 17 years. And there's others also. And I'm going to name drop some West Coasters. Like Brent Ayler still lives in the West. Jared Lintner still lives here. Skeet Reese still lives here. Josh Bertrand lives here. They're, and I'm missing Clip Hurt, they still live here.
Right.
But then, of recent, you look at guys like Brian Smith, Ty Al, Jimmy Reese, they still live here, but we're losing, some of the best anglers, I'll say, in the world. Right. Because our region grows them to be great. Right. One of the greatest anglers right now today that's fishing is Justin Lucas.
Right.
He's from Folsom.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And he moved to Alabama.
There's a pretty famous guy. I think
a simple price at Toyota Sunnyvale. That means our best and lowest price is posted right on the window of every car on our lot. It's not a starting price or a target price. It's our lowest price, and it's given to you immediately. It's how we would want to buy a car, so we've made sure it's how everyone can buy a car at Toyota Sunnyvale.
Gary Klein, came from the West Coast, comes from the West Coast, and
there's a bunch more,
Yeah, there's a ton of guys that have come out of here, and you just look at it and go, we, like you said, we keep losing it. And I've asked that question to a lot of these younger guys coming up, and it's like a lot of them are very excited that there is something here. We'll still lose a few, but
and that's like, for me, I'm long in the tooth. That's really why I want to do this. I at least want to build something that gives people the option, right? That it's a viable option to sustain a career because the platform has been built, right? That's what it is, right? It's the platform, okay? It's not, and I'm going to say it like this, it's not a stupid fishing tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I promise you, these guys that are fishing at the highest level, okay, they're not doing it on winnings.
No.
Okay. They are not paying their bills on winnings. Okay. They're paying their bills because there is a adequate platform that allows them to highlight their personalities, their skills, their abilities. And of course, if they catch some fish, then they get more press. Okay. That's what the companies are buying,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're not buying whether you want 100 grand or 50 grand.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They're buying, Justin Lucas, the marketer, the promoter, the influencer, and at a regional level, that's what they're buying from me. Is the personality, is the representative. So that's what I would tell people is, be patient. It's the right group. I've seen our group change and grow since last September. We're adding up to 15 more, and next year we're going to add more.
Mm-hmm.
There is a plan that obviously people out there are not privy to all the information, because if you start a business, are you going to put your business plan on the internet? No, you're not. Right. You're not going to put how much debt you have. You're not going to put out, how much money you're bringing in and what your roadmap is. And that's what I would urge people is be patient.
Right.
Because we are growing something that ultimately that we don't lose like a Brian Smith. You know what my goal is? I want to grow this thing in 2 or 3 years. Ty and Bryant, Lane Olson, all these guys that are kind of toying with leaving, that they're like, man, you know what? I can stay home and drive one day, and there's this great format that I can then sell and promote from. I'm going to do that.
Right.
Right.
And that's, and Greg, and Greg Gutierrez and I talked about this very same thing on the show. And we talked about, keeping, like yourself and Greg and, Mark Lassane, Zach Thompson, you guys are not, you're not the young guns anymore. You're not the ones coming up, but you're building this giant platform. You're building these steps.
Mm-hmm.
For the Luke Johns, for the Tide,
for the really good kid.
These guys coming out now that can say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be a West Coast angler, and I'm going to stay here because I can make a career now. I can actually be a West Coast guy, make a career, and be here because no one's done that yet.
Correct.
There's been a couple circuits that have come close to that in the past, but they lost focus and they got out of that. This actually, with Jeremy at the helm, I think this thing can really be a great format, and it does still leave, options for guys like yourself, for guys like me. I would love to make the Apex stuff. It's something that I'm going to strive for next year. It's something I'm going to work for. And I look at that and I go, I've been doing this a long time. I can't afford $70,000. Personality, no personality. I can't go back east, get my teeth kicked in, afford $70,000 and come home. I mean, look at Austin Wilson. He tried it. He did it. He learned it was very, very tough.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is. And and here's the thing. There's some people. Okay, so I'll take the other side of that of what you just said.
Right.
Personally and financially, I could go do it.
Sure.
Right. Like I could float the whole thing. I'm not wealthy, but I'm set enough to where if I wanted to go back there and fish for a year or two, I could do it. Okay. But my butt is I don't want to.
Right.
Right. And there's people that are just like me, so it's not always chasing something and money and this and that. What I equate it to is I hate driving. Right. And I remember when Ty said he was going last year and he had a tremendous year. And, and I wrote on his post, full-time truck driver, part-time pit crew, part-time travel agent, right? And every once in a while you get to fish tournament, right?
Yep.
Absolutely. And that's really what it is, and and this is no disrespect, and I've been saying this, I'll say this on social media. I think that MLF and the Elite Series, the Bassmasters, they have tremendous following. They have tremendous prestige. They've been around a long time with the highest level of fishing that there is. But to call them national trails, they're not.
They're not.
They're not. And I'm at a phase in my career now where it's okay for me to say that. Like I look at the map and you look at the Tackle Warehouse Pro Tour. I think the furthest east they came this year was somewhere in Texas.
West, yeah.
I mean west. I'm sorry. Yeah, the furthest west they came was somewhere in Texas, and the Elite Series typically does go to Texas.
Right.
Okay. Not including Alaska. There's 11 more states, including Texas, west. Yeah. Okay. Companies sell boats in those 11 states. They sell engines in those 11 states. There's a lot of fishing product that are sold in those 11 states.
Right.
So when people say, "Oh, well, I'm going to go fish the national tour," I says, "No, you're not. You're going to go fish maybe with the national organization who runs regional events."
Right.
And again, I'm not disrespecting them, and I'm not saying that they're not the highest level. Because I look at it personally as they are. Like the Elite Series is the highest level of to catch 5 fish.
Right.
Right. They have. If you want to catch 5 fish, that is in my eyes. That is the highest level of competitive angling in that format.
Right.
So basically that's what Apex wants to do. Is it wants to build the highest level where you have to qualify, through a field and actually, have, and I always say this, not, you don't just enter something, write a check, and call yourself a pro.
Right.
Right. That you have to actually qualify, through a pro-am series that goes throughout the year through a diverse fishery, through diverse seasons, and you end up, in the top 10 of AOI.
Yeah.
Well, and we.
Well, this is something that I've talked about, and I've said this for a very long time. I struggle always calling bass fishing professional, not the angler themselves, but the tournament, but the actual industry. They want to say, "Oh, this is professional bass fishing," and it's like, I struggle with that because you don't get up in the morning and some guy that owns $1 billion business writes you a check and says, "Hey, Ken, you're heading over here and you're going to go fish. This is where we're fishing."
Right.
One of the things that I see, and this is not anytime in the near future, but if you had the Apex out here and they became this Western dominant, and you had the FLW or the MLF. Yeah, no, I do that every day. And the Bassmaster Elites. Now all of a sudden you've got 3 organizations out there, and you could start to look at how you could put an MLB style format together or an NFL style together, where guys are actually paid to fish for a city, a state, whatever it is, and go to these tournaments and have these all, like you said, national events that are actually you travel to go to fish. Hey, we're going to be at Clear Lake. Such and such and such is going to show up, and that's who's going to be there. You ever see anything like that? You think ever happening in this industry where guys are actually paid to fish, and this becomes a true professional sport? I like to ask everybody that because I'd like to hear what different opinions are.
So as it stands, I say no, and I think the biggest hurdle that the anglers are basically up against in your scenario is that there's no union, there's no league, there's nobody that bargains for us. We're all individuals running our little individual businesses,
right?
So if I partner with Elk Grove Ram or Vexus, that is a negotiation between me and them. and it's just a bunch of individual, I guess you could almost call us little corporations,
right?
And there's no way to bring the anglers to then bargain with the leagues, like we almost saw that, when the Bass Pro Tour was formed, a lot of Elite Series anglers went to that league, and there was compensation and jockeying from both sides to keep anglers in their leagues, right?
Right.
So I think until that happens, like if LeBron James wants to go play in China at the the China League, for instance, the NBA and the Los Angeles Lakers are going to have something to say about that.
Correct.
And that's why they compensate him the way they do. Okay. So I think until there's those types of contracts that happen between leagues and franchises, so to speak, kind of like what you said. I mean, I don't think that that's
I don't think
that's
can
out
happen.
there. That's out there.
It's a far-fetched idea, but it's basically one of the easiest ways I know to put it. I mean, I agree completely with that. This is something, until Bassmaster or MLF or APEC, whatever, get into that position where they're like, no, we have to have Ken Mah fishing in our circuit. We have to have, Luke Clausen. We have to have this guy. We've got to have him. So we're going to have to pay him. So we're going to have to talk to his agent, and his agent's going to have to bargain a deal. He's going to have to write up the contract, and then he's going to be here. Now, I don't know how far off that is, if it is off, and I don't know if it'll ever happen, but it's the only scenario that I really see that could happen in the future. And if that does happen, then you can, you'll be like, this is a professional sport. Where it morphs to, I don't know, but that would be the one time that I could, easily say, yeah, this is a professional sport now, because we've got this in place and that in place, and these guys are being bought and paid for. I mean, period.
Yeah, but okay, so I would tell you, do you think golf's a professional sport?
Of course, but at the same time, those guys are, yes, they're in the same kind of position as you are, but they want them there. Tiger Woods is not going to leave the PGA Tour to go somewhere else when he was in his prime. He would have been kept there by his sponsors, but he would have been kept there.
But I'll say ultimately, though, a golfer is paid very similarly, much more, than a true professional angler, right? But they all operate under little corporations or little silos, And I guess if Tiger wanted to leave and go golf on the European tour, I think he would get more pressure from Nike and his corporate sponsors than he would get from the league. Right, because what could the league really do to him?
Yeah, PGA couldn't really do anything.
right. If he says, "Hey, you know what? I want to move my family to Europe. I want to live there now," right? And they have a European tour, and maybe it's not seen as the highest level, but that's where I want my family to live. PGA can't stop him.
Nope.
I mean, I don't know, unless the PGA has contracts with its players.
Right, and not that I know of, but I'm not a PGA guy either, so.
Well, and see, that's the difference. Like this group, for instance, the going back to fishing, the Apex group. We all have signed contracts with the league.
Right. Awesome. I didn't know that. I didn't know that you guys had all signed a contract with them to.
Yeah, there's an agreement. There's a fulfillment as a athlete or a participant, and there's also a fulfillment from the league that is outlined in the contract. So again, those are the things that obviously the outsiders don't see, but that's the kind of thing that Jeremy is trying to do here, right? He's really trying to build a very professional running platform, an organization, so to speak. So that you can't just come and go, right? Especially now, if there are some exemptions, but if you decide to leave, you're gonna have to requalify. right? And
Yeah.
it's not. I promise you, it's not. And it's not easy to requalify.
Oh, come on. All you got to do is fish the Wild West and then qualify and make, those are easy guys to beat. Come on, anybody can do it, right?
It's really not.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. So,
no, that's, but what, the thing is that even though it's hard to do, I think that it's still possible is out there, and anybody can have a really good year and make that top, say, hey, I made the top 5. I have a chance to go fish the apex.
Right.
That dream is out there.
Yeah. And what I like that I'm starting to see happen, is that for the first time in our region, anglers, people that were invited last year, and of the 15 that were invited this year, they are working on the business side of fishing for the first time. Like, I see people, and I'm not bragging. I'm just going to use me example. I've been doing that side of the fishing for a while, and it reflects in my support portfolio with companies, but let's, in reality, there's very few anglers, at that, what I would call at that regional level, that are being compensated for their ability to, like I said, sell, market, and promote, because ultimately that's what these companies want from us.
Right.
I mean, obviously you have to perform, but I used to tell Brian Smith all the time, like, he's won a whole bunch of stuff. He's won an MLF. He's won a Wild West. He's won 2 Wild West championships. He's won 6 or 7 boats. And I used to tell him when he was getting into the business side, I used to tell him, I go, like, dude, you're gonna win again, but you don't need to win again. Right? You winning has nothing to do with what you're getting on the business side of fishing. Right? It's your inability to parlay your exposure into what companies expect, which again is what I said, right? They want to sell stuff, they want a good representative, and they want a platform that you're going to be able to do that on. And he's starting to have, 3-4 years ago, he's starting to do that now and build those things, right? Because remember what I said in the beginning, nobody's making a living, even at the highest level, right? I mean, I guess unless your name's Jacob Wheeler this year.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, he's won $330,000, and I don't even know what other money he's won, not winning. Right. But for sure, he's won 3 events. Right. So he could probably bankroll his household for a year or 2.
Right.
With that.
But you still say that, still a year or 2. Not he's done and he, his house is paid off. He's got it. No. He's still going to be about a year or 2 out, and it's like you got to keep performing.
Well, and it's even
hard
less
to sustain.
Well, it's even less for us because of the cost of living for us out here.
Absolutely.
Right? So you win $300,000 out here. It doesn't really change your life.
Yeah,
right?
you may put a dent in your household.
Right, but it doesn't change your life. Yeah. So yeah, I mean that part of it is definitely different.
Right. No, it's such a good point, and I talked to Luke Johns about this, and he's still at Sac State, still going to college, and that's what he's doing. He's like, hey, I'm taking marketing, I'm taking public speaking, I'm taking advertising, because coming out at his age, he's won 1 event, he's done very well, he's doing very well. He's fishing the apex now, and it's like he knows the other side of the business is where you're going to make a career. And if you can go out and you can sell and you can market and you can push yourself and you do well on top of that, then you're just this, you're an animal out here, and you can do that. And like you said, this is where this platform needs to grow to and from, because, when I talked to him, he goes, I got a call. I won that New Millennium event. I got a call from Jeremy, and Jeremy's like, hey, I got a few companies that want to talk to you. And he's looking at Gary Yamamoto, and he's looking at, the tire company,
General Tire.
General Tire, and he's like, these guys want to work with you. And at 22 years old, 21, I think at the time, it's like,
yeah,
dude, you know what you just did, right? I mean, you're setting. You just took a dirt road that you were on, and you graveled it. You didn't pave it yet, but you graveled it.
Right.
And that's, if you can keep those companies with you, and you can continue to do that, and you can contribute and keep doing that, you're going to keep growing. This is what the Apex is doing right now. It hasn't paved the road yet for everybody, but it sure is setting down a really good base of gravel, Yeah,
I mean, that's a tremendous analogy of what, what's happening. And again, for us to, and when I say us, it's the organization, it's all the staff, it is the industry people. Rick Pierce has been instrumental in pushing this along, and there's others behind the scenes that won't be named, and the anglers. So when I say we, it's a we thing, and the 15 anglers that are coming in, they got to get on board,
right?
So and in order for us to, like you said, to go from grading it to actually paving it, it takes time, and the anglers, they have to do their part. We have to look the part, we have to be the part. Like that event that we did at Comanche with the community. It has been, and I don't like to sit here and quantify myself, but I've been in the game a while, and to see that kind of community outreach and interaction between anglers and young people,
right.
It was tremendous. It really was. I said that we elevated Apex and the platform at Comanche. Like something special happened there, so that's really the vision, so to speak. That's what we want to do, for guys like Luke Johns and Brian. Brian Smith is young too,
right.
And if they can stay here and sustain a career, why not?
No, why not? Indeed. In fact, for them, having your entire support group here in California, and being able to work hopefully eventually, I know that Jeremy talked about maybe 2 or 3 different states right away, but maybe in the future 11, all 11 Westerns down the road, would be tremendous. And I can't say enough about how, right now these, when you talk about the Bassmaster circuits, they get paid a lot of money to come to their areas. Mm-hmm. Well, if you start to build, and like you said, the 15 guys that are coming in, if they jump on board, which has been, a lot of people, just to quick on this, a lot of people have asked, why didn't this guy get in there? Why didn't that guy get in there? Well, maybe they weren't on board with it. Maybe they weren't okay with doing that. You don't know somebody's mentality on it. But if you can take and build this thing and then take it to a city, let's say Flaming Gorge out there, and they're like, we want you guys coming here. We want you to do this. They're going to start opening up their books and going, let me cut you a check for this so that you guys can come here. They're going to roll out the red carpet, and they're going to say, yeah, absolutely, 100%. We want this organization coming here, bringing us notoriety, bringing us money. And, because the way it's set up, you're not going to bring a ton of money right off the bat. And this was said, by some of the other guys. It's the residuals. It's the people coming in and going, yeah, they just fished that. Wow, they just blew our lake up. Now look at what we're doing. Now look at how many people are starting to come here to fish here, to see this area, to what we have to offer. Not only the lake itself, but the city and the town around it.
Yeah, and so there were 2 things that you said in there that I want to address. The first one is, the socio-economic impact that having an event, right? It's not a fishing tournament. It's an event.
Nope.
There's community interaction. There's people out there, and we highlight the community. We highlight the lake, and in turn, I can't tell you how many people have reached out on social media that has said to me, that is asking me about the lake.
Right.
Right. Oh, I've never been there, and it's only an hour and a half from my house. Oh, I've never been there. It's 2 hours from my house.
Right.
What's it like? What's it this? And if they go there, that's a person after the tournament that potentially eats breakfast, eats lunch, and buys $100 worth of fuel, and then maybe shops there at the local tackle shop.
Right.
So that person that lives in Roseville, who normally spends that $200 in Roseville, now is spending that $200 in Oroville.
Right.
Right. And that is the impact that these events and these types of community-based events have. That's what they're buying. Is that.
Well, and you say that, and you think about it. Think about it right now. Lake Almanor. How many people asked you about Lake Almanor after you got done there? Because I know it was a lot.
Dude, that I want to go back there so bad. I mean, from an angling perspective,
right?
But even as a hospitality perspective, the resort that we went out of, the staff were just tremendous, and they want us there. Mm-hmm. To highlight that, and it's fun. I know you opened it up, and we haven't talked about it yet, but going to new places with no practice and all that stuff, I can't tell you how much stress and how much fun there is.
Right, but what I'm basically leading to with Almanor too is now they just have these huge fires go through.
Yeah,
and they're going to be hurting.
They have to rebuild.
They have to rebuild, but they have this little platform that was earlier this year that they can say, what we're going to do? We're going to put on our own tournaments. We're going to start bringing people. And now people have seen that, and they're going to go back to those communities and say, you know what? That Apex group was up there. They just fished it. They just showed it's a great fishery. That all these guys talk about it. Now somebody puts on a tournament at Almanor, or somebody puts something on a benefit. People are more willing to go to it. People are like, oh, hell yeah, I'm going to go up there and do that.
I had no idea where Almanor was at until they told us where it was at. I had to look it up on Google. I had never been there. There's one other thing that you had touched on it that I want to touch on.
We have a process that we call simple price, simple process. And what that means is we take our lowest and best price and we post it on every single car. There's no back and forth. And by simple process, what that means is when you meet somebody, they can handle every aspect of what you do in your car transaction buying experience from beginning to end.
Talking about, inviting people and why didn't this person get in or that person get in?
Right.
And again, it's not, when you're running a business, you don't put, that you tried to hire 2 general managers and they both said no, and you hired the third one, so we accepted that, right? You don't put that out on social media or the internet, right? Because then the person you hired, how valuable are they going to feel? Right? They're not going to feel very valuable.
No, exactly.
And I'm going to drop a couple of names and people. Like people ask, well, why wasn't Wayne Brazil there this year? Right? Tremendous.
That's a big name I heard all this year. Tremendous
angler. I have a tremendous amount of respect. Wayne's won like 7-8 boats in his career, right?
Yep.
And look, what people don't understand is he was invited. Mm-hmm. Right? He was invited last year, right at the beginning when we had prior to the September meeting, due to the what the schedule was forming to be like and things like that. He had a personal reason where he couldn't commit. Right. So he went out in Wayne fashion, and he qualified this year. Right. And he was invited. He was at the meeting this year. For me as an individual and what we're trying to build, I want the best anglers in this field that want this format.
Right.
Okay. Now, is every single best angler going to be in this field? No, because they're going to have their own reasons. Not every single best angler is in the Elite Series.
Right.
Not every single best angler is at the Bass Pro Tour. Yep. Right. So, and it's going to be the same here. What I will say though, is this will be the best group of anglers that have to qualify.
Right.
Right. That's what makes this special. Is it will be the best field of qualified anglers. Another example, Ricky Shabazz. He finished, I think, 10th or 12th in 2020 AOI list.
Right.
He was invited right at the beginning of the inception, and right away. And I respect Ricky for this. Right? He's got a young family. He's got a demanding job. And he right away said, "I can't do it." So from the outside looking in, it looks like it's this fraternity that we're picking teams on a sandlot.
Right.
And that's okay, right? Because we don't have to explain everything. Once the field gets to 60 and it gets capped, they're going to start kicking underperformers out.
Right.
Okay. So whether you were invited in year 0 or year 5, if you can't hack it, you're going to get removed for underperforming.
Right.
Ultimately it will be the 60 or 50 best anglers that our area has, who sees value in the format that we're building, and who wants to sustain a career at the absolute highest level, as it pertains to having the appropriate platform to market yourself and the company and the organization.
Right. No,
that's what it's going to be.
And that's absolutely how it should be. It should be, guys, if you come in, great. And if you can sustain it, great. If you can't, then you're down and you got to go requalify. That's how it should. That's honestly how it should be.
That's what it is. Now, there's going to be a requalification criteria for apex anglers, and they'll get the highest priority to be reinvited if they happen to underperform for the agreed amount of seasons that they're going to use points, right? Because it's basically that's what it is. For the first time ever, you have to perform to stay. We've never had that. Right. What we've always had was, pay your money and you're fishing pro. Right.
Yep. No, absolutely.
So yeah, I grind. People have no idea. I got Ricky's cell number. Right. And how I look at it is, we have a strong Arizona following.
Right.
Obviously there's a strong Northern California following, and we have Oregon, Washington people that are on Apex. For this platform and this tour to really scale and grow, we need the best anglers available in all 11 states. Right?
Yep.
So, and that includes SoCal. California is so big that NorCal and SoCal can be its own 2 states.
Correct. Easy.
And and for me, like I said, I've been grinding on Ricky. I got his personal cell number, and he'll tell you, I'm like, dude, I want you here. Right. He qualified. He earned the right to be here. But again, because of personal reasons, he can't do it.
Right.
And that's okay. There are people out here, who can be, can win Angler of the Year in the Elite Series. They're that talented is what I'm saying.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. And for whatever their personal reasons are, or financial reasons, or whatever those reasons are, they don't want to do it, can't do it, or whatever, and we respect that, that's part of it.
Yeah, you have to. That's just, people have to make their own decisions for their family, their career, their whatever it is, and you just have to kind of run with that. And like you said, there's so much talent out here. It will be awesome to see this thing grow up to be even more, because there's a lot of young kids coming up. There's a lot of kids coming out of high school. There's a lot of kids coming out of college, where before this was not a thing. This was, I didn't come up with a high school bass fishing team, because trust me, I probably would have done better in high school and stayed there had that been an option. College, I can get a college scholarship to bass fish. I'm in.
Yeah.
there's something there. They weren't giving out hunting scholarships and fishing scholarships when I was going. So, but now there are, and those things are existing and they're real. And these kids, these young kids, men and women, are all becoming very, very talented anglers. And because they have the luxury of the Ken Mahs, the Greg Gutierrez in front of them, they have these, all these guys who have been out here in the West Coast, they have such a great platform right now to just run with and go, the knowledge I'm getting as I'm sitting in the back of those guys' boats is just tremendous. That was never an option,
Right.
So I think it's absolutely great. But I'll tell you what, this is still a fishing show. So what we need to do is that little trophy you got sitting back there, and I'll only tell you guys, that picture he's got right there does that thing, no joke. That thing weighed, what did you say, about 35 pounds, 40 pounds, something like that. It is a heck of a trophy. Let's talk a little bit about how you did it out there, because that was a really cool event. What were you sitting after day one? Because I don't think you were real high.
I was second.
You were second. Oh, you were second. Okay. I was trying to remember who was up there, but it was
Greg was leading the weight side with like 1805. And then I brought in 4 fish for 1561 is what my day one weight was. So, and again, it was a feeling out. I mean, I despise, you'll never see me do it. I hate talking about lost fish because, in a fishing tournament, you get credit for what you hook, land, and bring to the scales.
Right.
That's what you get credit for. Okay. Yep. You don't get credit for how many you hook. Right. That's not how it works, because if we did, I'd win every single tournament. Okay. Because I'd come in and be like, I hooked 100 of them.
Right.
I hooked 200 of them. So, it was tough to get bites. And as you could see, so after day one, perfect example, I was second in weight. I had 1561, and I was 5th for scoreable bass.
Right.
With 4. Right. And there was a tie of people at 4.
Right.
So when Mark had caught 13 and 5th was 4, and normally in tournaments, I have this formula that pretty much holds true, where whatever the cut weight is, you multiply it times 2, and typically you take off 2 pounds.
Okay.
Right. And that really holds true. Like when you go to the Delta, or, sometimes Shasta holds a little bit stronger because there's so many,
cookie
13. There's so many cookie cutters there. The only place where I've ever seen it go up is Clear Lake, and it hasn't gone up often. I think there was one tournament where the weight actually went up as it went on.
Right.
So when you look at 4th on the scoreable bass side being 4 keepers, and you look at Mark, who was leading the scoreable bass side after day one with 13, his math was right. He probably didn't need to catch another fish and would have made it, and he was right.
Right.
Because I think it only ended up taking it was 7 scoreable bass after 2 days. And then they had to go to a tiebreaker. So there was a bunch of guys, I don't know exactly how many, but there was a bunch of guys that caught 7 scoreable. And then how they tiebreak you is by weight.
Right.
Right. So if you have 7 guys who caught 7 fish, one of those apex anglers had the highest weight. That was the person that went. So for me, and I know that we're going to get to that because that's the question. For me, I had not been there before. I did some Google Earth search. I did some YouTube stuff, and I did some open source, Google stuff to find out what weights were and things like that, results, things like that, and, and what I realized, looking at Google Earth was there were tules in the lake. There was wood in the lake, and there was grass in the lake. Right. So I could see, and then there was a lot of riprap rock in the lake.
Yeah.
Right. So that was your predominant cover that was in the lake. And then through looking at YouTube and things like that, You look at seasonal things, and you can see, like I don't really look at YouTube to see what people are catching fish on. I want to see what the watercolor is.
Right.
So I'm always typically looking behind them when they're fishing. What is the structure back there? What is the cover? What color is the water? And if people will say what the water temp is, that's all valuable information leading into an event like this with 30-day off limits and no practice.
Right.
So I started off. I going into it, I felt I was going to catch them on top water. That I was going to catch them on some type of reaction bait, like a rattle trap, vibrating jig, and I was going to be able to flip and frog fish. It's August in California, right? I mean, you don't need to be, this professional anything. It's August in California. It's going to be hot. The water's off colored. There's grass, tules, and wood. You're going to throw top water and reaction, and you're probably going to flip pitch or punch.
Right.
But it was very diverse too, right? Because, Greg, I don't know if Greg caught all 18 pounds on a spinning rod or not. I mean, he's so great with it. It wouldn't surprise me. Right. So it's a pretty diverse fishery in that, you could have got on the rocks and thrown, a weightless stick bait or a drop shot or whatever and done well. So going in, that's what I thought, and I figured that I was going to catch some on reaction, and that's where I want to start in my heart anyways.
Right.
Is throwing reaction, because when I'm throwing reaction, it allows me to cover water and see more of the lake. Right. That's how I approached it. I looked at Google and I said, okay, what part of the lake is best for what Ken wants to do. Right. And I was able to find that through Google Earth, because I saw where the watercolor changed and where it discolored and those types of things. So I naturally gravitated to those areas.
Right.
And then when I got into those areas, I tried to fish. I didn't try. I fished as quickly and as efficiently as I could while throwing reaction, and then absorbing everything about the lake. Right. Like I said earlier, water temp, water depth, what type of grass is there? What do the tules look like? What, how deep is the wood? I mean, just you're covering and you're fishing, and you're basically practicing the first day that you get there.
Right.
And then I was fortunate I actually caught a couple of fish on a half-ounce rattle trap. I had a short, but then I caught one that was almost 4 pounds. On a vibrating jig. So, and then I kept seeing these tule clumps, right? And I'm like, okay, well, I'm for sure going to go flip those tules. Like, that's happening, because that's just it's in my DNA. Right.
Right.
I always tell people you have to know who you are. And I know who I am. Right.
Right.
I mean, if I can have a frog, some type of reaction bait, and a flipping stick in my hand, and feel comfortable, that's what I'm going to do. And I say this, and it's not in an arrogant way, but for me, because I know who I am, if I find fish, on a frog, on a flipping stick, and a reaction bait, I always say you better look out.
Right.
Right. So then I as the sun got high, because it was kind of cool, as the sun got high, I could see that there were lay down tules and kind of trash pockets in the tules. And as I got closer and closer to the tules, I realized how deep the tules were. Like I'd flip back in the middle of the tules on that lake, and it's 6-7 feet deep in some of those tules, and I'm like, I'm getting the chills when I start flipping. I mean, that's what I got. I was like, holy, I'm like, dude, this happens, and then, so I start, flipping these big tule berms, And, my first 2 bites I get, I hit them, I hang them. They're big ones, for that lake. They're always bigger when they come off. So whatever I thought it was, I usually always knock off a pound when I tell the story.
Yeah.
So it never gets bigger. So if I thought it was 6, I'm going to tell somebody it was probably 4.5 or 5.
Right.
Because they're always bigger when they come off. I promise you, they are.
Sure.
So at the time, I had 1 scoreable bass, and I lose 2 in the toolies, and they were both modestly in the 4-pound class. And I didn't know how hard it was going to be at that
Right.
time. I did not know how hard it was going to be. And then I was like, but you never want to lose them in an event of this magnitude, because you
Right.
start losing them, you're just, you're not going to make it. Like I said, you start losing them, or you lose focus, and you start losing fish, or you're not in the present. This group's going to clean your clock. That's what's
Right.
going to happen. You're going to go home after 2 days, and you're not going to know what hit you. That's the kind of group that is being assembled. So that happens. So now I'm still sitting on 1, and there was so many mental adjustments and decisions that were made that really made the difference. And I'm hoping this is what the viewers will want to hear.
We've paired one of the most iconic hulls in the history of bass boats with a proven lineup of trusted accessories. We're bringing you best-in-class value and performance, leaving others in your wake. Turnkey value, turnkey performance. The Pantera 2 is an overachiever in the 19-foot category. Once you hit the throttle, you'll feel the rush, and there's no looking back.
So after I lose those 2 fish, I look at the structure I'm fishing, and there's a lot of lay down toolies, and I'm pitching. I'm taking on day 1. I had weights from ounce, ounce and a quarter, ounce and a half, ounce and 3/4, and I actually had a 2-ouncer tied on. Mm-hmm. So I had 5 flipping sticks tied on in my boat, and I had 4 of them on the deck of my boat. So I'm pitching this big weight, and I kind of alluded to it after day 1. I told David Brown, who writes for Apex, I go, I'm doing a high risk, high reward deal, and I told him, I actually told him not to print it, but I said, this was after day 1. I said, I feel like if I can get 5 bites and land them, I'm around the right ones. Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is my conscious effort for the viewers. So after I lost those 2 in the toolies, I actually talked to myself, and I said, do I want to keep doing this? Because I feel like, because it was about 10:30 when that happened. I had a 1:30 weigh-in, so I still had 3 hours?
Right.
And I felt like I could generate 4 more bites. Like I felt it, like based on what I saw and what was happening, I felt like I could generate 4 more bites doing that.
Right.
And I said to myself, how many am I going to land? And I answered myself. I said, I'll be lucky to land 2.
Yeah.
Okay. So then I thought, okay, it's day 1. Do I want to weigh 3 fish in? And will they be the right ones? And I'm like, and then if you don't land 2, right, you land 1,
mm-hmm.
then I'm going to have 2 fish. And that term that they use, you can't win it on day 1, but you can lose it on day 1, is 100% right.
Yep.
So I made a conscious effort, although I knew in my heart I felt in my heart that the winning fish were in and around those toolies. I made a conscious effort and decision to stop fishing toolies. And it was a big decision. And what the After Bay also had to offer is there was a lot of grass around the toolies. And there was a mix of vegetation around the toolies and in the bays and that kind of stuff. And it was really clean vegetation. And like I said, I had never been there, but it really set up like Clear Lake past in the summer, because there's a lot of red leaf in that lake. So I said, well, hey, look, they're in the tules. Not every fish in this lake is sitting in the tules. So I'm gonna start fishing grass. Right? I mean, it's right next to the tules. They got to be in there. So I made a conscious effort and I started fishing grass. And then about 11 o'clock, it happened. So I had one in the boat, lost two in the tules. So that's three keeper bites that I had. And then I ended up getting 4 more bites in the grass, and I landed 3 of the 4. One was a 4.5, a 3, and a 6-pounder. Right. And I already had one that was 3 3/4. So that's how I weighed 1561.
Right.
Right. And then I'm doing the math in my head after the day's done. I go back, and Nick Salvucci and I stay together. Joe Uribe stayed with us also, and Nick and I, we were very open with each other, and so we talked about how did you do this and that, and so at the end of the day, I told him, I'm like, I go, it doesn't really matter at this point. I go, I lost 2 that were easily in the 4-pound class. He goes, so you're telling me you could have weighed 19 pounds? I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, you're around the right ones, right? And I was, and I told him, what I was doing and where I was at, and and I just I feel like I'm around the right ones. I go, if I can make the cut tomorrow, I go, I feel like I'm around the fish to win this tournament. I told him that at the end of day 1. So I was in second, going into day 2, and I did exactly what Mark did and what Greg did. You do calculations, you pray you're right, you pray you're right. And that's what's scary about this format, because, someone can go out there, like I ended up going from second to third in weight. Somebody like Juan caught 11 and 12 and had 23 pounds. He ended up leading after day 2.
Right.
You get, if I get 2 more guys to do that, I could have easily went from third to 5th, and then I'm sweating. Right.
Right. Oh yeah.
So going in the second day, I looked at the weight, and I believe 11 pounds was 5th. So, and this is what I did. I doubled the weight, which is 22. And because it was so tough, I took 4 pounds from the After Bay. Okay. So that takes me to 18 pounds, right? Yeah. Right. 22 takes me to 18 pounds. So I said, okay, if I get to 18, I'm for sure going to be in.
Right.
Okay. So I already had 1561. So I just figured, okay, so if I can catch, 6-7 pounds, I'm pretty confident that I'm going to be in. Pretty much run the same program on day 2. I start off throwing a trap and I actually put on a Jackal TN70 because the water was deep, and that TN70 is a 5/8 ounce bait, so it kind of gets down more. And then I threw a vibrating jig. I kind of started getting away from topwater because I just couldn't get bites on it. I couldn't generate any bites on it. Mm-hmm. Started the same thing. Got camera pulls up, and my first fish I hook is it's like a 3.5 pounder. And I get it next to the boat, and I got my hands on it, and I got it pinned up against my boat. I drop my rod, and I'm going to lip it because there's no nets in Apex. Right. So I go to lip it, and it shoots out of my hand in between my boat, and it's freaking gone. And I'm dropping freaking F-bombs. Because I know that, and I know how big that fish is because I have my hands on it. Right. Right. So I'm like, dude, I catch that 3.5, and I catch a 2.5, I'm in. Right. Right. And I realize how tough it is now because I've seen the results. Right. 4 fish was 5th on the keeper side. Right. On the scoreable bass side. So I kind of run the same program. I get into my primary area, and I'm there 15 minutes. And I got a 1 3/4 weight on, and I pretty much have said 1 3/4, 3/0 hook, and I got a 3.5 college crawns made by Big Bite, spicy purple. It's a bait that I throw on the Delta, Clear Lake. I throw it all over.
Mm-hmm.
And I get into my primary area. Everything's getting right. I make that pitch, bait shoots down, fish eats it. It's 4.5 pounder. Okay. I boat that fish, and Joe Uribe and I were sharing the same water. I boat that fish. Well, I had caught a 2.5er on a vibrating jig on my way to my primary area. So I had a 2.5er in the boat, and I catch the 4.5er. Right. So I got 7 pounds.
Right.
Right. So I'm like, oh, I'm in. Right. I didn't quite have 7. I want to say it was just over 6. It was probably like a 4.25 and a 2.25. So I'm like, I'm feeling more comfortable. Right. So then I kind of consciously ease away from my primary area because, it's funny that I'm sitting there fishing, and Joe's fishing, and Joe didn't have a great first day. So he's pressing on day 2 to get into the cut. And, so I kind of venture away from the primary deal, and I'm sitting there, I'm flipping my bait into deep tule and grass pockets. And I say to myself, I go, if one eats right now, Ken, are you going to set the hook? And I said to myself, and I went just like this. I went, no, I'm not. Right. Yeah. So that was my cue to leave. Right. And then I ended up catching like a 1.25 pound scoreable bass on a vibrating jig. Those are the 3 fish I weighed in for 7 something.
Right.
Which gave me like 22.5 pounds after the first 2 days. I actually went looking for other stuff that was similar to what I believed I could win on. And I just never found it. Right. And then when you don't know the lake, it's really hard to just venture out. So that's how day 2 ended. I could see through Tourney X, looking at the Tourney X standings, and then when we came in talking, I could see that it was another struggle day. Juan was really the only person who did good 2 days in a row, hence why he was leading. Greg had laid off his fish, Mark had laid off his fish, and I kind of laid off my fish. I went to get something, I got it, and then I left. Right. And that's what's interesting about the format is because you just don't know, was Mark on the right kind of fish, or Greg having 18 pounds the first day, was he on the right kind of fish and just absolutely just didn't go fish it? Because the weight's 0 after day 2.
Yeah.
So
which is another great part of that format for me. I love that part of it. So
yeah, I don't want to say I love it, being a part of it. I like it, because, it's the only way you could do it, because you take the top 5 in scoreable bass, right? You take the top 5 in weight. Well, there's no way to carry, like Mark Lassane's 13 keepers. You can't carry that 5 fish weight with you, right? So once the top 10 is formed, the weights are zeroed, and it's basically big bag of the tournament of that day. Right. And with everything, if you look at Almanor and you look at Comanche, and even if you look at the After Bay, the people that were on them and caught them all week is who ended up being at the top. Right. Almanor, Nick Salvucci and Austin Wilson and Travis Huckabee, they were catching them what I call all week. And then Austin ends up first, Nick ends up second. I think Travis was either 3rd or 4th. Right. Right. So that typically translates into the final round. Other than Juan, who he says he feels like he ran out of fish. You look at, Austin was catching fish, and he had a tremendous, I felt, going back to what I said earlier, I looked at the weights, and I felt 15 pounds was going to be a fantastic bag of fish. Right. For 5 going into this tournament. And then, you made the comment like, well, hey, when you put a group of really great anglers on a body of water, they're going to exploit it for everything they have. And what's crazy is that there was 5 bags over 1492. Right. right? Because Alice Klein had 1492 on day 2 to get into the cut. Greg Gutierrez had 1805 on day 1. Austin Wilson had 1750 on day 3, right? So the only person that had 2 of those 1492 pound bags was me. Right. And I'm not bragging about it. My point is that I was on that type of fish, and that's who ended up winning. That's why I'm pointing that out. Right. Because I had 4 fish for 1561. And like I said, basically could have easily weighed an 18 or 19 pound bag that day if I boat one more keeper.
Right.
And then on day 3, I weigh, 1944. So it ends up translating. Just the Comanche was very similar. Jared Lintner was catching them. He ended up second. So the person that's catching them all week typically will end up doing really well or winning.
There was something that was said at the event. I interviewed you a little bit about afterwards, and one of the things was really, and I've heard this every one of these interviews that I've done with the winners, from Greg to yourself now, Austin Wilson, camaraderie. The way these guys are almost making this like a family. And one of the things that happened on I think it was the last day, you had talked about was Uribe. And you get to your spot, you're fishing your spot. Mm-hmm. He pulls up. It's basically his spot too.
Yep.
But he knows, and he's looking at you going, okay, he's in his zone. He's in his spots. He's doing this. I'm not doing this. It's his. He walks away from that spot. Now, competitive wise, that's not in his best interest. Competitive wise, his best interest is to do everything he can to cut you, steal you, get every fish he can away from you to take that bag home himself. What does that mean to you, looking at these guys and looking at the way this is and the way this Apex is setting up? What did that mean to you? I know you guys are roomed together. I know all that stuff, but talk a little bit about the humanitarian side of the way this thing is coming about.
So I will say that in any group, not everybody would react the same way. Mm-hmm. Right. So obviously, for me to acknowledge Joe, and my hat's off to Joe, for doing that. We have a tremendous respect for each other. But there is, like I said, after, the things we talked about, which I won't get into, in September when this group came together. It was short of romper room what people were focused on. It was almost like there was a group of third graders trying to figure out what you're going to do for recess. Right. And everybody wanted to do 4 different things. Yeah. And that is a perfect analogy of where the group started. Mm-hmm. And I say that to people, and I say that to the new people, that if they're listening, it is not a stupid fishing tournament. Okay. Anybody can put on a fishing tournament. Sure. Anybody can collect money, shuffle it around, and hand it back out at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. Okay. Not anybody can scale the media, can require everybody to wrap their boats. There's a requirement, and it's not enforced by, our peers. We're getting on each other. Right. There's that kind of stuff going on. It's not Jeremy or Randy, walking around saying, Ken, put your jersey on. Vince, put your jersey on. That, it's like, I'll walk by somebody and be like, dude, where's your jersey? So yeah, there's that kind of stuff going on. There's expectations that are being set from within the group, and with that, like I said, I'm going to revert back to Comanche. Mm-hmm. We, how you are doing something at work or you're around a certain team and you can't put your finger on that something, but something happens in a positive way. That's what happened at Comanche, in my opinion. We elevated as a group at Comanche. I think people, and they're still figuring it out, but there's people that are not looking at it as a stupid fishing tournament anymore. Right. That we are trying to build a true platform for people and anglers to have a viable place to sustain a career and not have to drive 3 days to go fish a tournament.
Right.
So I think that part has changed. The professionalism has elevated. There's people that are dead set against having wrap boats and jerseys, and they have conformed because they understand what it is we're trying to build.
Right.
So yeah, from that aspect, obviously the Joe situation was above and beyond and different because we have a personal relationship. But yeah, there is a level of respect that is growing. When you respect your peers, and your competitors. I can respect, getting beat by somebody, and interacting with somebody while we're in our league. That level of respect is reciprocated, amongst people. Now, to say that it's a perfect situation and there's no conflict, there's always going to be conflict in fishing.
Right.
That's just the nature of what we do.
Of course.
So
it's still competitive.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really thought that was something, like you said, above and beyond. A lot of guys maybe not have done that. But it does show the class, I guess, of angler that's fishing these events.
It does. It does. So
it truly speaks to that. I would say, there's a lot. I've heard backroom stories of things that have happened on the tournaments, and different things. And every one of them has always turned out with the guy turning and saying right back to me, he goes, but you know what? The guy did the right thing. He said the right things. He did the right things to make it okay. And it's when I hear those, that's not what you hear out of the, quote unquote, everyday tournament. Somebody would do something and it's like, I wish they would have done the right thing. They didn't, but it is what it is.
This is what I would, if anybody's listening to anything that we're talking about, as far as it becomes etiquette, if you take the model that you want on the water and in life, but on the water, that you want people to do onto you what you do onto them. Okay. And I think the most lost thing that creates conflict about where you're fishing, what spot you're in, or whatever, just your water, my water, is the lack of communication. And I think if people would just talk to each other, I do it, I'll come into an area and maybe somebody's here and I want to go past them to go fish somewhere else, or further back, and if it's you, I'll stop and I'll idle from 100 yards so I don't disrupt you. Be like, hey, Ed, I'm going to go back there.
Right.
Okay. You were here before me. I'm going to go back there. Are you going to go back there or are you going to stay out here? And you're like, no, I'm going to stay out here. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go back there then. Have at it. That 5-second exchange changes the entire complexity of how the next few hours are going to go.
Oh yeah.
And of how you feel about that person. So that's what I would tell people, is don't be afraid to talk to people. Now, if you talk to somebody and they just come at you sideways, right, well, then they have indicated to you that's not, you can't have the whole lake.
Right.
Okay. So if I come up to you and you tell me, Ken, I want 350 yards that way, 450 this way, and 650 this way, I'm like, yeah, you can't have all that.
Yeah.
You can't have all that. Okay.
Right.
So I'm telling you, I found fish here. I'm going to fish. You were here first. I want to go there. If you want to go there, go.
Right.
Okay. And I'll take wherever my second place was around here. You know, and I think that those types of conversations are not being had.
No, they're lacking on the water for sure. Yeah. They're people, especially in a lot of our tournaments, because a lot of our tournaments are 1-day tournaments, and people are very, quick territorial. Hey, I have 19 spots and I'm going to hit today, and they get frustrated when they pull up and somebody's on one of their spots. It's like, especially I never saw. I hear so many times. Well, I've been fishing here for 4 days and I never saw that guy once on that spot. And it's like, who cares?
Doesn't matter. They're there now.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, why are you mad about it? Go to your next spot,
Right.
And that's the kind of thing that I talk about with that. And it is, like I said, for me, I look at that and I go, this is a very classy group right now. These are guys who are absolutely, like you said, they're buying into the situation. They're buying into the tournament. They're buying into the organization. And it is what I think a lot of people should strive to be in this industry, especially. You see it on Bassmaster. You see it on, the guys are guys, and they are competitive as all get out. It is what it is. But like you said, with some common courtesy, some different things on the water, being professional is what I'd like to say the most. Then you can actually, if you want to call yourself a professional because you paid $1,400 and you went out and you got a big shiny boat and you go up to the front and you're fishing and hey, I'm a pro. Okay, then act like one. And that's what I really see at this organization. So that's probably one of the biggest things.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. I think the other thing that comes to mind also is it's because it's the same group of anglers. You don't have any influx at each event.
Right.
And you have to face that person day in, day out.
Yeah.
You're going to end up at the parking lot or the ramp with that person at every event. I think that there is more of that awareness between the group, but to say that, when we get to 50 or 60, that all 50 or 60 people are going to get along and go out to dinner together, I think that's a fantasy. I think that there's going to be conflicts and going to be issues and cliques and things like that, like in any workplace, but in the end, you're there to do a job.
Yeah.
Right. And I'll keep saying it. And it's not to win a stupid tournament. I mean, and I get it. I want to win. Don't get me wrong.
100%. Why put your money up there if you don't want to win?
Yeah. But what I'm saying is in this situation is that we're trying to build something to where it truly becomes worthwhile to win.
Right.
And you want to fish for big prizes and big purses and big stakes.
Sure.
That needs to be built. And the only way you build that is with corporate partnerships, right? You don't do that with angler money. Okay. You can't do that with angler money. You do that with corporate partnerships.
Correct. Kind of running off of that, we're gonna get close to wrapping up here. Let's talk real quick about what's coming up next, because you have the Delta for the championship. You qualified for that.
Yes.
But leading right up to that, off of just what you said, is one of the things that I've really noticed about the Apex is I don't see any big checks being held up. I don't see any money being talked about, anything. You get that giant trophy back there, and then it's like, oh, and you're off the stage. Done. That's very awesome. Going into this championship now, there's a lot of guys that are Delta sticks. I think this is going to be a really, really competitive but very awesome tournament to watch. Guys want to, I'm going to say this, be out there for that final day weigh-in to see what these guys can do. Because I'll tell you what, I believe you made it, Mark made it, Zach Thompson made it. I haven't seen the whole list. So those are the top three that I know made it.
I think Dutra made it.
I think Dutra made it.
Austin Wilson can catch him there. Nick Salvucci can catch him there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is going to be one heck of an event to watch, to see that final day. I mean, to watch the whole thing. I mean, turn the X, turn it on, watch it, have it in the background, whatever, on Friday, Saturday, whatever. But on Sunday, guys, come out and see this event, because I'm telling you right now, you're going to see some bags. You're going to see some guys. And it's in
October,
right?
Yeah, it's like the third weekend. I think it's October 22nd, 23rd, 24th. And we're going to be stationed out of B&W.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that there's going to be some bags coming in on that
Agreed.
tournament.
I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, that's basically what I was going to ask you. Where are you at? I mean, confidence wise, October at the Delta. I mean, I think there's going to be so many guys that are just going to be like, this is it. This is it. I got to win this thing. But it should be competitive.
Yeah, like it's funny because you're trying to name a bunch of Delta hammers, right?
Yeah.
But then we throw Nick Salvucci's name in there. We throw Austin Wilson's name in there. Mm-hmm. And again, when you look at this field, I think between you and I, we named like 7 people.
Right.
And it's just like you shake your head,
Yeah, because there's 11 other guys that are out there who all are good sticks.
Yeah, they're just they're tremendous, and that's what this group is going to. That's what this group is now,
right?
And that's what this group is going to continue building toward.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's at one point I was fishing in a bay. Joe Uribe, me, Juan Acosta. And Alex Klein, we're all within sight of each other. And you don't want me to list what Joe and Nick Salvucci have won, right? We'd be here for 15 more minutes, And then Juan Acosta, he's a prior Wild West Pro-Am champion,
right?
So it's like everywhere you look, you're just like, man, it's stacked. It really is. It really is.
Yeah.
So,
that championship in October should be absolutely just amazing to watch.
Yeah, I'm excited about it for sure. And I would say, in closing, people out there, set goals for yourself in everything you do in life, but especially in fishing.
Yeah.
And then whatever level you're fishing at, push yourself to go to the next level, whatever that is. If you're fishing on the weekend, get into a club. If you're in a club, get into teams. If you're in teams, get into Wild West teams. And then you can get into One Bass if you want to try Pro-Ams. Because with One Bass's shared weight format, it's a little bit easier to kind of learn in that format. And then as you elevate. And you want to catch your own fish, you can go to MLF, you can go to Wild West, and then, if you want to get to the highest level, and not have co-anglers and have the platform and the exposure, then qualify and come to Apex.
Right.
But that's what I would tell people is set goals. I obviously have goals short-term and long-term that I want to get done in the fishing industry. And if you don't set those goals and you don't write them down or think about them, then you probably won't ever achieve them.
Right. Absolutely. Good ending note there. Well, Ken, thanks, man. It's a good show.
Yeah.
I know it's going to run long, guys. I know we went on it. It always works that way. A couple guys get on here and start talking about fishing, and we're going to do that. I hope you enjoyed it. This guy's got so much knowledge, about this sport in general, about Apex, about just fishing. Keep watching his stuff. Keep watching how this goes. Be out there in October. See that event. Thanks for tuning in for Wired for Bass. We're going to let you go. Ken, again, thank you, man. Ken, just a good show, man. Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you very much. And if anybody ever has any questions or anything like that, hit me up on IG or Facebook at Ken Mah Promotions. I don't mind answering questions with people, and I just enjoy helping people. So thank you very much.
All right, man. Thanks. I will. We'll see you guys on the next one.
All right. Thank you.